fantasy, mystery, sci-fi, horror, espionage, conspiracy, thriller. It's all there, and there's Jekyll and Hyde as well.
We squeeze
them in. So when you first conceived of this reimagining, if I can call it that, of Jekyll and Hyde, was all these other different elements there in your mind to start with?
I mean, that's all the stuff that I love. And I've always felt that we don't make enough of that on TV. Growing up in the 60s, I loved shows like The Avengers and The Prisoner and The Champions and Adam Adamant and all that stuff. Made this a lot of which was made by ITV, and then it stopped in the 70s and it became kitchen sink drama, really. And I've always just wanted to do something that had all that stuff in it, and ITV came along with a wheelbarrow full of money and said, do you want to have a go? And it was just it was such a fantastic opportunity to just make the sort of show that I wanted to watch.
Francis, when ITV kind of approached Charlie, did ITV want to have it's a huge, big, epic show, big budget and everything. Yeah. Was that a direction that ITV wanted to take with drama, and also a family-friendly show? So all of that was that part of the whole.
That's exactly what we wanted, and that's what we got. But that is what we wanted. I don't think they were quite prepared for the mix of genres, but they gave us our head and we could do what we wanted. I remember reading the script for the first time and thinking, oh well, we won't be able to afford most of that, but it's really good, and I think it's pretty much all in there. So yeah, they gave us fairly free rein, but we knew it was going to be on early evening, 6:30, 7, and so we knew we had to. There were certain parameters, but within that, they were pretty free with us.
Foz, when you first read the first finished scripts, was all of that there? Was it that kind of all this lavish world?
The mix was there, and the layering of the world was there, and I remember reading the Victorian stuff and going right at the top of the show, thinking, okay, yeah, here we go, and then we're in Ceylon, and you go, what is this? How can and then I remember having a conversation with Francis because so Margate Beach, and this can't happen, kind of the struggle for us as a kind of production has been meeting Charlie's imagination, fighting to get it clear and strong and robust, and then being able to deliver that. But I think we managed to get there. 90% of it, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so much more than I ever imagined. I mean, I was the same. I thought, well, they say they want a big show, right? It was originally India. I said, okay, write some scenes in India. Let's see how we do. I didn't think Margate Beach. I thought Wales. I thought we'd be in the Welsh hills. But no, it very much came back from Francis and ITV saying, no, we want it to be ambitious, and particularly first episode to really launch as being something big and new and exciting. And it was down to Foz really of making that all work and putting every penny of the budget up there on screen.
Mm. Natalie, what was when you first got sent the script, and it's called Jekyll and Hyde? Had you read the original? What was your awareness of that? And B, what did you think of this incredible version of it?
Well, I think my awareness of it was about the same as yours. Because Charlie hadn't said he hadn't read it either. So.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
So that was the first thing I did, was read the original novel. And I've always been a huge fan of Charlie from the Fast Show days. It was something that I grew up with. So I had a reference point straight away for something that, to read the script and know that this was something I definitely wanted to be part of. And I read such a small part of it. Of course, as an actor, when you audition for something, you very much usually only get your section of the script. But straight away, Bella jumped off the page as a strong, feisty woman. And I knew there was plenty I could get my teeth into. And so I was thrilled to even have a go at auditioning. So I was even more excited to be a part of it.
It's interesting because I visited the set. I was lucky to visit the set, and it's a huge, big, actual, proper, old school, physical
it's lavish,
space. And you've got your own space of that bar that we've seen. That must help establish your world, if you like.
Absolutely. From day one, I think the first thing we saw on the read-through day was Bella's boudoir, which is very Art Deco, 1930s, lavish, very plush. And then obviously the Empire set, which we saw there, which has this beautiful faded grandeur and all these elements of this life that Bella kind of wants to live but isn't quite achieving. It's a little grimier than perhaps she would hope. But certainly the sets and very much the hair and makeup informed me from day one where this could go.
Was it hard to find? Tom can't be with us. He's rehearsing with Ken Branagh. I call him Ken like I know him. I don't. So Ken. So that's his excuse. Reasonably new to obviously. I liked him in Da Vinci's Demons and all of that, but we don't. It's not that hugely known. Was it hard to find your lead man?
It was really hard, and we always knew that was going to be the hardest part of the casting, and the most important. You know, he is the star. He's got the central role. In fact, he's got the central 2 roles, and that was the hard thing: was finding someone who could convincingly play both. In this country, we turn out a lot of actors who can do the Jekyll side, sort of very repressed, posh, Hugh Grant types, and we export them all around the world, and people love us for it. But if someone wants a hard man, they don't come to England. America got plenty of their own, and we don't do tough guys. Not really since the '60s. We had all those great guys in the '60s, the likes of Sean Connery and Michael Caine and Oliver Reed and Robert Shaw. There were loads of them, and but we stopped, I guess, making that type of film and needing that kind of actor. And now we've got Jason Statham or Tom Hardy. No, we got Tom Hardy, Tom, and that's why Tom gets all the jobs, because who else? If you want a tough guy, who else are you going to call? There isn't a huge list of people. So we got all these. We got some great young actors in, very sexy young guys, and we'd start with Jekyll, and I think, oh yeah, this is it. This is the guy. We got him. And as soon as they went into Hyde, you thought, I don't really believe that. I don't buy that. You can fake being nice and repressed. You cannot fake that physicality and that ability to kind of enter a room and own it and stare people down and be genuinely tough and physical. But Tom came in and just did it. He was doing Shakespeare in Love at the time. He was playing Shakespeare, so he was in quite a sort of swashbuckling mode anyway. And he just came in and he just went for it. Because a lot of the actors you could see, we would say, actually, can you go a bit more over the top? You could see them going, well, they told us at drama school we weren't ever supposed to do that. This is television, you have to take it down. We said, no, it's not that kind of show. It's big and it's out there. And Tom just had it straight off, and we just thought, yeah, that's going to work.
What did you think when you first? Did you do a chemistry read with them, as they call it?
No, we were thrown into kissing, I think, probably about second day in.
Okay.
No, Tom's been an incredible leading man. He's dealt with such a big weight on his shoulders at such a young age, with incredible ease and dynamism, and has been so welcoming to this plethora of cast. We're in a couple of days a month here and there, but all the time he's dealing with new people, on a constant stream, and he's nothing but friendly. And I'm starting already to get the questions about how lucky I am to work with him, how gorgeous he is, and how lucky I am to kiss him.
That's all that start.
I know, right? I've started getting those questions. Right. So I'm well prepared. But Tom, I've got your back.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a very good-looking guy, a very sexy guy, and he's got that sort of old-school movie matinee feel about him, which works perfectly for us.
I have to ask about Richard E. Grant. Absolutely, kind of deliciously, slightly camp over the top. Did you have him in mind from the start? It feels like you did.
No, I wrote that part for myself.
Oh yeah, right.
That was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, that was one of those conversations we had to have early on. You don't have time.
And Foz and Francis said, are you nuts, Charlie? There's no way you'll have time to do all this and play the part.
Yeah.
So I said, well, who are you going to get that's better than me then?
When we went to America,
which was when we saw Richard E. Grant.
When we went to America, we had to do an idealised casting, and I said to Charlie, who would you, send to give them an idea? And I said, I'll send you my suggestions, you send me your suggestions. And Charlie, on Bullstride, Charlie just sent a picture of himself, said Charlie Higson.
Was it hard to get Richard in the end, or was he? Or did he?
Richard got it.
Yeah.
He came in, and actors at that stage you talk with rather than have reading the lines and all that kind of stuff. But he read the entire script, knew it, loved it, and kind of was like, we were pushing on a very open door. He arrived.
He said, "Who do I have to sleep with to get this part?"
He did. He used a word rather than a. There we are. That's blown the whole website thing, right?
God. It's a family show as well.
I think partially it's because we were all very aware at the top of the show, and casting Tom was crucial. How do you do evil pre-Watershed? That's the real. And the novel hated it. You don't know what his Hyde went off and did. He went and did unspeakable things, and it's. The kind of choice in Charlie's writing and the way we went was to make Hyde the most charismatic man in the room, the most interesting man in the room, in a kind of, you know, Hugh Laurie at one end and Jamie Lannister at the other end. You know, Jamie Lannister opens his episode buggering his sister and breaking the back of a kid, and 5 episodes later you're in love with him. Again, that's a really interesting dynamic that we can...
Why have you all started swearing?
Buggering's not swearing, it's an action. But you know what I mean? That finding the kind of way to do evil that is engaging and accessible, I think, is why everybody gets it.
But did ITV have any, not, you know, doubts about how, whether you can get away with all this stuff at 6:30, if you like? Did they have any, you know, oh, can we go that far? I mean, it feels...
Well, I mean, joking aside, you know, we took a very responsible attitude to it, and we knew that what the slot was going to be, and we heavily ran everything past the compliance department at ITV, and, you know, at the script stage some things were toned down, at the filming stage some things were toned down, and at the, you know, the really interesting thing is once you start getting the special effects in, because you can read something on the page, all right, okay, this happens, fine, and then you can even get your first cuts in where you haven't got the special effects in, and you're thinking, all right, there's going to be a monster there. It's only really when you finally put that monster in, and you're going, oh my God, there's quite a scary monster in there. So it's a really interesting process, and you know, and I think it's quite a challenging process, but that's fun. You know, you don't want sort of carte blanche to do whatever you want. So I quite liked working within those.
We did work they've got a very good compliance officer at ITV, very good compliance team, who goes by the name of Mel Quirk. And we took her along. She came to all the read-throughs, which wouldn't normally happen. She got all the script, I think almost every draft of the script. She saw the early cuts and the later cuts. At one stage, I worried that she was getting a bit immune to it. And she said, I make sure my entire team watch it. Some of them got small children, some of them are young, some of them not older. You know, we took it very seriously. So we were sort of aware that this would come up.
Yeah. I mean, modern kids, they, you know, I found this writing my horror series for kids. They're quite hard to scare. They've been exposed to a lot more than we ever were at that age. And it's not only the stuff that they're allowed to watch. They watch a lot of DVDs they're not supposed to be watching, and stuff on the internet they're not supposed to be watching. Obviously not the tiny kids. And so, you know, we're making a show for the X-Men generation, kids who go out and watch all those films, where there's a lot of action and violence and death, but it's not in your face gore. So
it's Indiana Jones' Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
You know, Pirates of the Caribbean has no blood except when it's plot. You know, so when he's shot at the end and the sunlight catches him and all that kind of blood is real and necessary to story. And that's how we've treated our blood. So, you know, lots of guys were punched about in the show. No blood, no flying teeth, no split lips, but you felt his power, you felt his energy, and it's good fun, you know, kind of.
It struck me there's also there's a sexiness to this show as well, though perhaps there isn't in other kind of tea time dramas, you know, that are very chaste. No names, but this feels slightly sexy to me. You know, we saw the clips at the end of, you know, of Jekyll being told to strip and all this kind of stuff, and you're in a kind of love triangle situation, aren't you, with him? So that's an interesting element, I think, to it, isn't it?
Well, it's not something that Bella's really exposed to until later in the series, but I think it'll be interesting for the audience to figure out how they feel about these two sides of Jekyll and Hyde, whether it's justifiable that he's two people, or whether he's kind of just playing the old game of, well, you know, when I'm Jekyll, it's just, you know, it's okay for me to be with another person to when I'm Hyde because I'm two people. Whether the morality of that, I think, will come into question. So, you know, I hope people will sort of go on that journey as well.
And is that romantic element key as well?
Yeah, you know, sexiness and romance was really a big part of it. You know, it was interesting that Natalie earlier saying, you know, she went to read the book to get a feel for it, which is not much use because there aren't any female characters in the book. Well, there are two, and we put both of them in our prologue. There's a girl at the window who screams, and there's another girl who gets trampled. That's the entire female cast of the book. But you know, I very much wanted to get a strong female cast in it, and yeah, to bring out, because it goes back to what Foz is saying. He's got to be Hyde. He's got to misbehave. He's got to do things, and obviously misbehaving romantically is one of the things he would get up to. So we wanted him to be sexy. We wanted all the cast in their own way, to have that sort of broad term of how sexiness is applied now. We wanted it to be a sexy show, to have that glamour. I mean, the two things really that were my touchstones on making it were Indiana Jones, as Foz had just said, but also James Bond. And in this country, James Bond has traditionally played on ITV as kind of Christmas Day afternoon family viewing, where James Bond, you know, people are being shot and tortured and terrible things are happening and he's misbehaving with a lot of different women, but it's always been seen as nice, firm family entertainment. So, you know, I wanted to get some of that into Jekyll and Hyde.
You have kind of incorporated all of your probably not obsessions, all the stuff you're a fan of into it, haven't you? There's a reference, there's Tenebrae at the end, I noticed. Dario Argento reference,
yes,
maybe?
Yes.
You're kind of, it must be a great treat for you to be able to kind of, it does feel like getting all down there.
Well, it is fantastic. You know, as I said at the beginning, it was just such an amazing opportunity just to make the sort of show that I wanted to watch and to have the budget to do it properly and to put in all the stuff I love. But I didn't want it to get sort of too kind of in-jokey and disappearing up my fundament. No. We're not allowed to swear anymore, Francis. Fundament's all right. You know, I didn't want to get it too kind of metatextual, but you know, yeah, my God, you know, if I'm going to spend half my life writing this thing, I might as well write about something that I like.
Yes. Were you effectively show running together this thing? You're writing, you're exec producing. Is that how did it work? The relationship between?
It's a triangle, really. Kind of, you know, kind of.
Another love triangle.
Another love triangle. You know, kind of the Francis is the studio, and absolutely across the editorial and compliance and all that kind of stuff. Charlie is the heart of the creativity and all that kind of stuff, and I'm the kind of physical body of making it all work. But they all crosses over. It's all it's a proper collaboration where you go, what do you mean, Charlie? That's bonkers. You can't have that. Oh, they won't let you have that. Well, you can do this, maybe. You know, I don't know about you guys, but that's all felt rather healthy.
Yeah, no, it was a really good relationship from the start.
Francis. Wasn't quick enough.
Where, you know, where it was very much kind of working out the strongest way of making that happen, and it was a joy, really.
But you were there all the time on set,
yes.
watching. Yeah.
Well, as much as I could be. I spend a lot of time writing and doing rewrites and stuff. But I mean, Foz is much more the kind of at the coalface, making sure
monsters.
Sure they don't squeeze blood.
Yes.
The Harbinger, which you saw there, was sort of example of half man, half dog. What does it look like? And Charlie sent through a picture of a baby wombat. Yeah. And he said it should look like this. And so it's sort of.
If you've never seen what a baby wombat looks like, they are hideous. They're completely naked. They have no fur. It's not. I don't mean they're not wearing clothes.
Welcome to our world, boys.
Yeah. This
is an example of the conversations.
Well, I'm definitely googling baby wombat. If I do one thing after
baby
this
wombat,
thing.
But you know, and so that's a difficult thing, and it's quite hard watching the sort of first cuts, because you're looking at a guy in a green suit and you're thinking, I don't know what he's going to look like, jumping around, and so you have to have a vision there to help you picture everything, and also to help everyone picture everything, to talk to the designer, and that was always Charlie, who we had to come back to.
Now you have seen the finished article on the big screen. Does it feel like it has translated your initial concept, initial scripts onto something? Do you feel? Oh.
Well, you know, I still watch that and think I can't quite believe we actually made that, because it just came out so much beyond my expectations of what we would actually be able to achieve, and you forget all the hard work and the things that changed and worked or didn't work over years, and I've watched that so many times now. It's kind of no, I just love it. So I can't remember what your question was.
Well, how it felt like to see the finished version? Yeah. How much it felt like for you? What about you, Nat? I mean, we get you doing kick-ass stuff. That must be kind of thrilling.
I mean, you're part of such a small part of it that you forget the bigger whole. You forget what a beast it is. What a lavish story that's being told. So we had a great time interpreting your vision on set, but we couldn't really know what was being created, and that was part of the thrill of it, really, because we were at the start of something that now seeing it on screen feels really exciting.
And you two, you must.
You know, Colin, who directed that episode, is here tonight, and you know, is absolutely central to the style and the tone, and you know, lots of conversations, lots of engagement, but in the end, somebody has to tell somebody else to point a camera in this way, and you have to trust that you've articulated the world, and then everybody goes and does their thing. So costume do it, design do it, and crucially in terms of opening episodes, directors, you know. And, you know, all those bits came together, I think, fantastically well. And then you've got the tone. You know, for me, 5 degrees that way, and it's a kid's show, and people walk away from it. 5 degrees that way, and it's a horror show, and people will be upset by it. It's really hard to get the line, and we've all battled with the various bits and pieces of it, and fingers crossed we've got it right. But it is a genuine collaborative journey. If you stop listening to people, you stop understanding what's possible.
Natalie, did the performance, in terms of getting that tone exactly right, was that hard, or did you feel from the start you knew which way to go in terms of how to do it?
I felt like I had a strong idea. I think Colin was the person who steered the ship for all of us because it was so unknown. But referring back to the costume and the set and the makeup, that was so important. I mean, it was such a transformation for me. I've never played a character that looks so different. Yeah. And that really gives you a sense of strength when, you know, you're wrapped in the jewels and you've spent 2 hours in hair and makeup and, you know, you're given this gown. You can't be a shrinking violet, you know, you have to own this, you know. So for me, that was really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the style of acting, it's quite a tricky one to pull off. And, you know, modern acting, the whole sort of method thing is very much internalising stuff and working out your complex emotions. But, you know, in some of these scenes, you're required to go from finding out your whole family's died to turning into a monster to doing a humorous scene. And it's getting that tone right where the emotional stuff still works, but you're not getting so torn apart and into it that you can't then flip it around and move on. So in some ways, I use sort of 1930s films as a template for that, where, you know, it was much more, right across the board, even in Hollywood stuff, it was much more sort of stiff upper lip. You weren't showing your emotions on your sleeve, and I find that actually more emotional than the whole kind of stuff. So just finding that pitch of getting that level right was really important, and that was, you know, in TV these days you don't really get rehearsal time other than when you're on set. But for me, the main rehearsal time really is the auditioning, where you're seeing all those actors and you could see, okay, this is an actor that gets it. And certainly when Natalie came in, you could see, all right, great, she's got that strength, the power, she's really going to hold her own on screen, and she gets what we're trying to do here.
I have to ask about the transformation. How, did you work a lot on that? Did you know from the start how you wanted to go from Jekyll to Hyde?
As Foz was saying before, we wanted Hyde to be sexy. We didn't want him to be a hairy monster with big fangs and big teeth. He just wanted to be that personality change. But at the same time, I knew very much that anyone tuning in. We haven't tuned into TVs for many years, have we? Pressing a button the first time, they're going to be saying, right, I want to see the transformation.
Yeah.
So we always knew we had to address that. So I came up with the idea that Hyde, as he transforms, he kind of goes through a monstrous phase and then comes out the other side as Hyde, so we know that he has that in him. And in moments of stress, you could see in some of the punching scenes from future episodes, that kind of monstrous side does come out. But for most of the time, because he's got to be on screen and carrying the story along and talking to people, he had to be just an ordinary man, as it were. But we know what's inside him.
We saw, particularly we saw some of the monsters, but in the fantastic clips from future episodes, it looks like a kind of incredible array of mixture of CGI and latex or whatever. Was all of that? There's a slight backlash maybe towards CGI, I've sensed in certain films and TV, but were you embracing it and embracing the opportunities there for you?
I think you have to use CGI sparingly and almost not. Sometimes you see whole sequences in films which are basically animation, and I think we were quite keen to combine the two and use it quite sparingly, just so people aren't aware of it. And what I think the team at DNEG did particularly well on his transformation is it's quite subtle in places. You know, the veins going up the hand is quite subtle, so you're not thinking CGI, hopefully you're in the story. There's nothing worse than when you watch something and go, well, that's a good bit of CGI. Then you're immediately out of the story. We have to keep people in the story. Yeah.
That claw thing looks incredible. I can't wait to see the full. What's it called?
The cutter.
The cutter.
He's actually 7'2" tall, that guy. Wow. He's called Jason Rashard. And he's a French... He's
over there.
Hey! Jason! There he is. Now you believe me.
He has to sit at the back of... no one will see anything otherwise.
That's a great bit of casting there, yeah.
No, well, you know, it was just brilliant, because again, we were seeing all these people, and, you know, we in this country, we don't do huge, tough guys, so you're seeing these people. And I was actually watching it on the tapes of it, because I hadn't been able to be there on that day, and these guys would come in and they do their bit. And it's very hard to tell just on camera, just against the wall, how big someone is. So you'd see these people coming in, they're going, oh, I'm 6'2", I'm 6'6", you think, because Tom's actually quite tall, he's over 6 foot. Yeah. And then Jason came in, and at the end thing, he'd say, how tall are you? I'm 7'2". Is it 7'2", or are you taller?
7'4".
7'4". And I fell out of my chair. I just thought, that is our guy, fantastic. And you know, it's great to have a guy like that on set, and to give him a huge lobster claw at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's also about finding the the Harbinger performer details is a physical theatre performer. So a kind of very different choice for telly. And I think you saw one of the zombies from later on. Yeah. Again, you know, they come from different traditions, and getting people from those places into our world, in the end, makes it feel very different for you guys. But it's very reassuring, because we know we're not going to get something normal, which is very exciting.
Absolutely.
I love all the 19th century Gothic stuff, and you know, I was obsessed as a kid reading all that sci-fi and fantasy and the likes of H.G. Wells, and certainly Island of Dr. Moreau is a big part of it. There's lots of kind of half man, half animal things, and there's the idea that Hyde himself is sort of half man, half animal in some ways. And in one of the episodes, he finds a branch of his family where that they also change, but they change into a dog. So it's a kind of... I mean, the other thing was, you know, one of the reasons I set the show in the 1930s is because that was the golden age of the Universal horror monster movies. And so I wanted to do my versions of all those great monsters, of Frankenstein and Dracula and the Wolfman and zombies and the Mummy and all that stuff. So, yes, as we've said before, I'm just putting in all the stuff that I love and shoving it in there somewhere. We knew from the start that we wanted it to be that you would care about the characters and get drawn in. You know, I'm a huge fan of what Russell T Davies did with Doctor Who when he brought that back, because he knew that he couldn't just appeal to the fantasy and the sci-fi geeks, and so he rooted it very much in a very strong drama and a family drama, with Rose making her a really important character and not just a sidekick in a miniskirt. So that was one of my things that I was very aware of. I mean, the other thing, you know, that was great with ITV, with Steve November and his guys, is, you know, they said from the start, they said, look, we don't do fantasy and horror, and I don't really know about that, but we do drama. And ITV drama has always been very strong, and it's been very rooted in you know, in strong relationships. And so it was great to have that input, to really making sure that you cared about the emotional core of it and the relationships in there. And in terms of what you can and can't show, I mean, it's obviously you can imply stuff, but, you know, again, it comes down to being aware of the slot that we're in, and having enough of that, you know, you're drawing people in, and particularly we didn't want it just to be watched by 10-year-old boys, obviously. And again, it's getting the balance right on that. You know, too much kissing, and the 10-year-old boys are going to get quite cross and leave the room. But if you can get it just right, then yes. But yeah, but it was interesting getting that balance. I mean, what did you feel on that time, Natalie, about how sexy you were kind of allowed to be when in some of your scenes with Tom?
What a question! You could have warned me.
It's a good question.
It didn't really occur to me. I think one of the joys, going back a little bit back to what you were talking about with the character, is we were never reined in, you know, and talking about the tone of the piece. Nobody ever said, okay, this needs to be a little bit more subtle now, you know. And so for Bella, I mean, she kind of wears her sexiness in everything that she wears and does. So for me, it was more go as far as you can until they tell you to stop.
We did have a problem. We cast later on. I hope I'm not giving too much away. Later on, Jekyll's sister appears, and we cast an actress called Wallace Day, and I went down on the first day of filming when they were filming in the hall, and I said to the episodic producer who was doing that, Lou Sutton, I said, oh, they've got a great chemistry together, they're very sexy. And she went, 7 o'clock ITV Sunday, brother and sister. And I went, yeah, could they stop being sexy?
But no, I mean, but a really important thing for me on that front was that the women were strong characters, and they weren't just kind of rolling over and accepting what Jekyll and Hyde is doing. They're constantly questioning him. And you know, my model for that is that, and why I think it's such a popular story that keeps being done, is that whole idea of Jekyll trying to keep his Hyde side secret and hold together his normal life. And Lily for him represents everything that's good and pure and nice in the world that he's trying to preserve, and he knows that that's constantly threatened. If he turns into Hyde, he's going to destroy that world. But when he does turn into Hyde, he kind of needs somewhere to go. He automatically is going to Bella, but Bella is there going, you can't just come to me every time you turn into Hyde, and I'm going to accept that. So, you know, that does set up a really strong dynamic. Well, it was partly that I wanted to bring in the contrast between the whole sort of gloomy, dark London that you're expecting from the story, and I wanted to bring in some of the kind of colour and excitement you get from the Indiana Jones type film. So the Indian story does carry on. I don't want to give you any spoilers, but it does, and some of those characters do become very important in the series. And so it was just wanting to start somewhere completely different, and I liked the idea that Robert had been brought up in secret and completely hidden from his real past. Yeah, so and also, you know, you're touching on ideas of colonialism and empire and that in a gentle way, but that does get addressed here and there through the series.
In later episodes, it becomes much more apparent some of the reasons for it.
But yes, I was slightly. We're very careful that we didn't stray into Steve Martin territory in The Jerk. For any of you who know The Jerk, where he's brought up by this black family at the beginning, and he has no idea that he's different to them. I mean, Foz, do you want to talk about the locations and the...
Yeah, I mean, the kind of heart of it is Cat Meredith, the designer, who kind of took elements of Victorian Gothic and tried to find a way to marry that with, you know, kind of modernist London. Not a lot of which still exists. So Eaton Square, I think we're in for is Lily's house, which is the Georgian Square.
Fitzroy Square.
Fitzroy Square, thank you. We shot a lot of it in Chatham Docks for a kind of whole range of areas. The kind of the street that the Empire is on is actually Rochester High Street, which has... But deliberately in Charlie's writing, a lot of the story is rooted in Victoriana and comes through. So the Empire was there then, and Jekyll's house, of course, was there then. And so the modernist bits are kind of when you come to Bulstrode. Kind of Bulstrode's office, Gold's, Woods, all that kind of the monster fights and stuff. So it's really in the hands of, I think, the design team going to make that.
Yeah, and you know, we very much wanted to be based in London and to use as much of London as we could, but it's very hard filming in London, very hard finding any bits that you can still film on. I mean, one of my favourite shots in it, I mean, going back to what we were talking about CGI and not kind of showing off about it, but just making it part of the thing, is the shot where we first do the transition back to London, and there's a very nice shot of the Houses of Parliament and the bridge, and you just kind of accept it as it goes past, and then you think afterwards, one thing about that was 1930s London. And I think that the Double Negative, the effects company, did a really good job of adding in those bits of London digitally to give it that feel, because, you know, most of it was shot on sets or down at Chatham Docks, which is where everyone goes and films these days. You're queuing up behind Mr. Selfridge and Call the Midwife.
But a crucial mix of the part of the show, though, and Charlie was very clear from the top, this is a British story. And it couldn't only be here, and you know, you get the Hulk and all the American superheroes and all that, who are grandchildren to Jekyll and Hyde. The real proper, this is the first, and kind of making it feel British and taste British is really kind of core DNA stuff, I think.
Well, the central idea is Jekyll and Hyde. It's a guy that turns into his monstrous evil side does emerge, and we do address. I mean, the whole prologue, pre-titles bit is obviously based on 2 sections of the book. I mean, the problem is the book itself. You can read it in one sitting, and if we'd done a straight adaptation, that would have been episode 1, and then we'd have had 9 episodes where our central character was dead. And everyone would just be sitting around getting on with their lives. So,
and the book is also called The Strange History of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Whereas Jekyll and Hyde is...
Yeah, we toyed with ideas of calling it Jekyll and Hyde Rebooted and Jekyll and Hyde this and that, but we knew in the end people would just refer to it as Jekyll and Hyde, so we thought we'd call it that. We do go back, and elements of the book are kind of woven in to the series, but it was using that as a starting point and inspiration. And Jekyll and Hyde is the 3rd most filmed character of all time. I'm sure you all know who the first 2 were. Anyone want to offer? Sherlock Holmes and Dracula, exactly. 3 of these classic books, which were all written within nearly 10 years of each other. The first, I don't know what was going on at the time, but and that Jekyll and Hyde idea has been used in so many different ways and so many different adaptations. So I didn't really feel that I was desecrating a classic. So I'm sure some people will feel that.
Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde was much more of a...
Yes.
Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde, I think, is even more of a denigration.
Yeah, if you want to laugh, look
it up on YouTube.
Look at the trailer for Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde. It's quite extraordinary.
But Jerry Lewis had not Jerry.
Well, The Nutty Professor is Jekyll and Hyde.
Jerry Lewis
Breaking Bad is Jekyll and Hyde. The Incredible Hulk, as Foz said, is Jekyll and Hyde, and all these things have come from it. But it was very. It was. It's a big, new, difficult thing for ITV to launch, and it was very much felt that they wanted to do something that had a strong, recognisable name. People come to it, oh, Jekyll and Hyde, I get that, and then they think, hang about, this isn't Jekyll and Hyde as I know it, and I think that's fun.
Jekyll and Hyde Rebooted would have been a terrible title.
Well, that's the other reason we didn't use it. Yeah. I mean, Francis, do you want to sort of fill in the whole...
The process for me was quite long because we started talking about this slot about 4 years ago, almost when I first arrived. But actually the strange thing, and we had a number of things in development which we were talking to ITV about. We had 3 or 4, or actually about 8 treatments that we were talking to them about. And it was very close to when we were about to present them that I saw Murder in the Caribbean, which Charlie had written, and Miss Marple, and I suddenly thought, hang on, Charlie writes scripts. And he does the young James Bond books, so he'll probably be able to come up with this. And actually, it happened incredibly quickly, because I think we commissioned a treatment from you in sort of November. The treatment came by December. We commissioned a script off you, which came in January the year after, and it was commissioned 2 months after that, and we were in production 6 months after that. So it was incredibly quick, frighteningly quick. There were a couple of moments where I thought, I'm not sure we can do all this, and Charlie worked incredibly hard to kind of get his head around it. But we were quite, Foz put together a team very quickly, and we were quite focused about it, so that was quite quick. As to the ad breaks...
Well, I mean, I didn't write the whole 10 hours. I got 5 other writers in, very good writers, who did an episode each. I then did a kind of final pass just to pull it all together, because there's quite a lot of ongoing story and stuff that needed to match up. And it's not a length that I'd written for before, because actually an ITV hour is about 46 minutes.
I remember you saying early on, I said, it's a lot to write, and you said, yeah, but how long is an ITV hour? And I said, about 46 minutes, and you went, so that's 15 pages less. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. And I actually like the structure of writing to an ad break. It kind of makes you think about your acts, as it were, and what your peaks and your troughs are going to be, and where you need to put those big moments that hook people in and give them the payoffs they need. So I really enjoyed that, and I like that structure. I mean, it's always hard getting things to the right length before you start filming. You need a little bit of leeway because not everything's going to work, once things finished, you realise you don't need those 2 pages of dialogue because your actor's done it in a look. Yeah, I'd not, other than the Miss Marple, that's the only thing I'd ever done for ITV. So I was much more used to the BBC way of working, but I did really like it, and I think a lot of the other writers liked that idea of that you can talk about, well, you know, this, we haven't got the moment that's taking us into the ad break there, and that does mean that you build in a lot of energy into the script.
It helps that it's a kind of genre show in that sense, isn't it? You expect big bangs. This is important. Ad break. You know, and you kind of go, oh, great, okay, I'll come back then. Yeah. You know, it's quite a simple structure in that kind of thing. Hard to do, but clear.
And the other thing you can use those advert breaks for is very much an idea that you've gone away and come back, so things could have happened and, you know, could have moved on. So you could.
That's how we dealt with the sexiness.
Yes, an ad break. We didn't have it at the backs of our minds. It was right at the front of our minds because the show is partly financed by ITV-GE, which is the equivalent of BBC Worldwide, and they were very keen to have a long-running show that they could sell abroad. So it was right at the forefront of our minds. But what we didn't do is we never said, how's this going to play in Singapore or how's this going to play in Des Moines or anything like that. But we were very sort of true to, you know, at no point did we think, oh, hang on, will anyone understand this elsewhere? We just made a show that was very entertaining. A good story, hopefully can sell anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I have described it as Downton Abbey with monsters.
That's given me a nightmare because people keep asking me about that.
But what I mean is what people seem to love from this country, and that we seem to do better than anyone else, is our period dramas. And they can sell very well around the world. So it's got that very Britishness as its core. It's kind of not scary for people. It's like, oh look, it's the 1930s. It's like a lot of the other drama that they love from this country. But what I felt was really fun there was to take that 30s world and fill it full of mad monsters and crazy happenings. And that for me felt quite fresh and not something that we've really seen a lot of, if at all, set in that 1930s very British world. Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant by Downton Abbey with monsters. It's a good soundbite.
Lady Mary or Lady Edith?
She's a bit down and dirtier than that, I'm afraid.
Yes, she is.
We did talk to WGBH about it, who show Downton Abbey, and initially they were very excited, and they said, oh yeah, Jekyll and Hyde, we understand that. And then Rebecca Eaton rang me up and said, there are monsters in it. And I went, yeah, well, it's a monster show. And she went, we're not going to take a monster show.
More for them.
More for them.
We have run out of time, unfortunately. There's another screening taking place after this, but I want to thank the panel. Congratulations on a fantastically entertaining show. Thank you for the questions and to the BFI and ITV.
Thank you.
Thank you, boys.